Good day. Our topic for today is your hygiene and your personal care. So, the importance of hygiene in nursing care revolves around these three concepts: infection control, dignity preservation, and your comfort promotion. So, your proper hygiene reduces pathogen transmission and infection risk in your vulnerable patients, while in your dignity preservation, clean appearance maintains self-esteem and psychological well-being during illness, while in comfort promotion, your regular hygiene care enhances physical comfort and overall satisfaction with care. A quick history and philosophy of hygiene care. So, in ancient civilizations, early bathing rituals in Roman and Greek societies emphasized the cleanliness of health. In Middle Ages, uh, the hygiene practices declined with misconception about disease transmission. However, during the time of Florence Nightingale, it revolutionized nursing hygiene through sanitation principles. And in our society today, evidence-based approaches with cultural sensitivity now guide our hygiene care. So, what's now the patient-centered care and autonomy? So we always ask the patients what are their preferences, and we support self-care or independence for our patient. Then we use clear and respectful dialogue about hygiene needs and preferences, and we always maintain the privacy and the dignity of our patient through proper draping and thoughtful environment control. So what are then the nurse's role in hygiene care? So first and foremost is assessment. So we check on the patient's condition and capabilities prior to hygiene. We develop personalized hygiene care basing on the patient's preferences, and we implement it with direct care or support patients' independence as appropriate, and we monitor the outcome and adjust the care to optimize skin integrity. So first, let's discuss your skin structure. So your skin is divided into your epidermis, dermis, and your subcutaneous layer. So your epidermis is the outermost protective layer, and they have five sublayers that provide barrier against pathogens and environmental damage. Next to epidermis is your dermis, wherein there is a rich in collagen and elastin fibers, providing strength and elasticity. So your dermis also contains your other um, organs, glands in the skin, such as your sweat glands and your hair follicles. While your subcutaneous, it's a deepest layer made of adipose and connective tissue. So in your adipose, it anchors your the skin to the underlying muscles and provides energy storage. So what are then the functions of skin? So primarily, it is for your protection. So it is a barrier against pathogens, chemicals, and physical damage. It also regulates our temperature, so by sweating and blood vessel dilation and constriction. And also for your sensation. So with our skin, we can feel the pressure, the pain, and temperature. And also, it's also a form of your elimination of waste products through our sweat. On the other hand, we have your hair. So we have hair follicle, hair shaft, and we have the growth cycle of our hair. So our hair follicle, these are the living part of hair embedded in the skin containing your stem cells for growth. So it's surrounded by blood vessels providing nutrients for hair production. Then the hair shaft, these are three layers. We have your cuticle, cortex, and your medulla. So it is a visible portion composed of dead keratin cells. And the growth cycle of hair, we have your anagen, catagen, and your telogen. So the cycle length varies by body location, age, and the health status of our patient. So, what are then the functions of hair? So, the functions of hair is primarily same with your skin, no? For temperature regulation, protection, and sensory function. And also, your social expression can be communicated via our hairstyle. So, um, it could we can communicate our cultural identity, personal expression, and social status depending on our hairstyles. And let's go now to the nails. So the nails, we have your nail matrix, nail bed, nail plate, and your cuticle. So the nail matrix, it is the hidden root of the nail where new cells are produced located under the cuticle. And we have your nail bed. It is the highly vascular tissue beneath the nail plate providing nutrients and oxygen. So this is the pink color. Then we have the nail plate. It is the visible hard portion of the nail made of translucent keratin layers. And we have your cuticle. It is the protective seal preventing bacteria from entering the nail matrix. So ideally, your cuticle should not be cut during your nail care procedures. So the function of nails is for protection, no? So to prevent um, it shields the sensitive fingertips and toes from injury during daily activities. And also your nails enhance your fine motor skills by providing counter pressure when grasping small objects. And our nails are also used as a health indicator. So changes in their color, texture, or growth patterns will usually reflect our overall health status. So our skin, the integumentary system has age-related changes when it comes to your geriatric population. No? So as we grow older, our skin usually has a decreased elasticity, extreme dryness, and prolonged healing time. So that is why we always advise to have minimal soap use, and we use intensive moisturizer for our geriatric patients. And what are the factors affecting your hygiene practices? So we have four. First, we have your cultural influences. So some of our patients have religious and traditional way of taking their hygiene. They have your personal preferences. So we have individual routines and choices of their hygiene products. You also have socioeconomic factors, so access to facilities and running water. And we also have your environmental context, such as your living situation, privacy availability, and facility resources, which determine your possibilities of your hygiene. So, what are then the physical barriers to hygiene? So, we have mobility limitations, energy deficits, and your sensory impairments. So, some patients, especially those suffering from stroke and those mobility um, diseases, such as your arthritis, they tend to have difficulty in maintaining their hygiene. Also, for your patients suffering from your post-surgery or with COPD, they tend to have fatigue due to their um, illnesses. And we also have patients, those who were blind due to your diabetic retinopathy, or those patients suffering from uncontrolled DM leading to diabetic neuropathy. They tend to have visual or tactile deficits that would compromise their ability to assess your cleanliness. Also, your mental health can also have an effect on our hygiene. So, We have cognitive impairment, you have depression. So most of our patients who are depressed um, will not take bath for how many days. And we have anxiety. So anxious patients usually do not care for their hygiene and they usually isolate themselves. So these are some of the hygiene related diseases. So most often we have your skin infections such as your scabies, ringworm, and your cellulitis. So your cellulitis is the bacterial skin infection with redness and swelling. We have your mucous membrane infections such as in your mouth. We have your oral thrush caused by a fungal candida. We have your conjunctivitis in the eyes, and we have gingivitis for the gums. And if not treated, this can lead to your systemic infections, such as your urinary tract infections due to your improper perineal care, respiratory infections from poor oral hygiene, and we have your gastrointestinal infections from hand hygiene lapses. And here are some of the hair and scalp alterations. So we have your dandruff, alopecia, and your head lice. So your dandruff or your seborrheic dermatitis is a flaky, itchy scalp condition caused by fungal overgrowth and rapid skin cell turnover. So we can give for this patient medicated shampoo such as your selenium sulfide or your ketoconazole. For your alopecia, it could be temporary or permanent. So it requires gentle handling, mild products, and sensitivity to psychological impact, no? Especially for those patients suffering from cancer and who are given with chemotherapy, and one of the side effects is your alopecia. And for your head lice or your pediculosis capitis, we can management includes your pediculocytes or nick coming. So it requires prompt identification and treatment to prevent your spread of your head lice. And for your nail structure alterations, we have your onychomycosis or your nail fungus. So it requires long-term antifungal treatment such as your ketoconazole. And also we have your ingrown nails, very common. Um, your nail age grows into your surrounding skin, causing pain and inflammation. So one of the ways to prevent this is to trim your nails properly. Then we have your brittle nails. So splitting, pinning nails, commonly seen in your geriatric patient. Then for your nail plate abnormalities, we have bridges, pitting, or color changes. This may indicate your systemic conditions requiring medical evaluation. So example of this, for patients having your cyanotic heart conditions, they tend to have nails, so they have clubbing of nails. So this indicates a decrease in your oxygen supply in the body. So what are the hygiene assessment skills? So these are the areas that we have to check for our patients. We have your skin integrity, the odor, the cleanliness, and the self-care ability. So for the skin integrity, we check for the color, texture, moisture, any lesions or breakdown of the skin. For the odor, we check the character, the location, and severity, especially for those patients suffering from your athlete's foot. Then cleanliness, we check for any dirt, debris, or oil. And self-care ability, we check the independence level and the equipment used by our patient. So these are the infection prevention and control in your hygiene care. So first and foremost, we always do hand washing or hand hygiene before and after patient contact. Then we clean the environment. So there should be dedicated patient supplies and they should be properly disinfected between using between the using um, with other patients. Then we can use your PPE, your gloves, gowns as needed based on exposure risk. And we check the environmental cleanliness of our patient. And these are the bathing principles and benefits. So one of the physical benefits of your bathing is that it removes your microorganisms and enhances circulation of your body. And one of the psychological benefits is that it increases comfort and reduces anxiety through relaxing water temperatures, especially if we use warm water. And if we do bathing, we can assess our patient. So we allow systematic skin inspection. So it provides time to evaluate mobility and self-care. So we will know if there are limitations to the movement of our patient and enables early detection of skin changes or wounds. So these are the types of your baths in the clinical care. So we have complete, partial, shower, or therapeutic baths. So when we say about complete bath, it means full cleansing for immobile patients, especially for those suffering from your spinal cord injury, usually from the cervical down. Then we have your partial bath or focus cleansing for the face, hands, and axilla, especially for those suffering from high-grade fever. So we can give partial bath. Or for those patients that are having no problems with ambulation, they can do their shower or tub bath. And we have your therapeutic bath. So we can use your medicated solutions for skin conditions or temperature modification for fever management. So these are the equipment for your bed bathing. So we have your bathing supplies. So we make sure the temperature is around 43 to 46 or warm water using mild soap or cleanser with washcloth and towels. Then we can supply, with personal items, individualized clean hospital gown, then gloves if we anticipated contact with body fluids, and we always put privacy measures um, prior to bed bathing. So the steps for your complete bed bath: we prepare the supplies, then we do it cephalocaudal from the upper to your lower. So for upper body, we start with the eye using plain water, then face, ears, and neck, then continue with the arms, hands, chest, and abdomen. So we only expose the areas being washed. Then we do the lower body cleansing. So we clean the legs and feet and assist or perform perineal care for our patients. Then we can apply lotion or moisturizer for dry skin. And then we document the procedure or any skin condition findings and patient's response. So these are some of the specific techniques in bed bath. So we do the washcloth technique. So we form a mitt around our hand with a washcloth to prevent loose ends from dripping. Then we change the water when it becomes cool or soapy. Then the direction of the washing should be from distal to proximal, so as to promote your venous return. Then we separate the skin folds gently to clean and thoroughly dry areas between them, especially for our patients who are obese. So how do we maintain patient dignity during bathing? So we always ask for permission and consent prior to bed bathing. Then we minimize your exposure by uncovering only the area being exposed. So infection prevention during bathing, we maintain um, the cleanliness by changing the basin water when it becomes soapy, cloudy, or cool. Then we use your hand washing before and after the bed bathing. Then we separate washcloths for face and your perineal. So there should be separate a cloth for your face and your perineal area. Then if there's wound, we cleanse from clean to soiled area, especially around the wounds. So we adjust the bath routine for skin integrity. So if we have dry skin, so we reduce the bathing 2 to 3 times quickly, and we use tepid water and soap-free cleanser. Then we can apply moisturizer thereafter. For those patients with at-risk skin approach, we can use minimal friction when cleansing, so we avoid direct pressure on reddened areas. Then for fragile skin, we use extreme caution, so we can consider no rinse cleanser. So there are cleansers that doesn't need not to wash with water. So we can use that, and we avoid rubbing or vigorous drying for patients with fragile skin. Now, how about for your perineal care? So uh, perineal care is indicated for patients suffering from incontinence and for post-exposure, post-procedures such as following your urinary catheterization or rectal procedures. And also, it is also indicated as a routine hygiene. So, aside um, from bed bathing, we always include your perineal care for those patients who cannot uh, ambulate or cannot do their perineal care by themselves. Then, presence of menstrual flow or vaginal discharge or wound drainage in the perineum it is one of the indication for our perineal care. So special considerations for females. No, so we always ask permission prior. Then we position the patient supine with knees flexed and hips externally rotated if possible. So uh, it's like in a lottotomy position. Then we can use clean gloves and dedicated washcloths for your perineal care. So there should be a separate washcloth for your perineum. Then we clean it from front to back. No, so it means from pubis to the rectum, meaning from cleanest to the dirtiest. Then we separate the labia to clean the urethral area first, then the vaginal area, then the anal region. Then we rinse it thoroughly using clean water and fresh water. So still we use front to back direction. Now for the males, we can do your perineal care for uncircumcised. We gently retract the foreskin, then using gentle circular motions from urethral opening outward to prevent your contamination. Then we can lift the scrotum or the scrotal area to clean the underneath where there are moisture and skin breakdown commonly occur. Then we clean the perineum toward the rectum to prevent urinary tract infection. So up and down or front to back. So from cleanest to the dirtiest. So when doing your perineal care, we can reduce the infection first by really doing our correct, proper hand hygiene. Then we clean it from the cleanest to the dirtiest. Then ideally, it should be single-use wipes. Then we use your clean water and we can apply protective cream to prevent your skin breakdown. Now let's go now to the foot. So in foot care, we assess the skin color and temperature. the presence and lesions or pressure areas, the circulation, and the nail condition. So we can soak our foot of our patient in warm water, not hot. Then we pat dry completely and we can apply moisturizer to your dry areas. But we should avoid putting moisturizer between toes because it will it 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 will facilitate your bacteria contamination because in between the toes there will be moisture, and with that moisture bacterial numbers will multiply. Now for the nail care in our foot, we cut the nails straight across and we avoid cutting into corners. And we can file rough edges smoothly so as to prevent your ingrown nails. And that is why we do your foot care, especially for patients having your DM type 2 because they tend to have diabetic neuropathy or decreased sensation in their feet. So we always check the temperature of the water. Then we avoid soaking. So we wash without prolonged soaking, which can macerate the skin. And we pat dry it thereafter. Then we always check the foot of our patients, and also we can refer to podiatrists or those specialists in nail care when it comes to trimming their nails. And for your hand care techniques, so when we do our hand care, we can assess it by examining the skin integrity, the nail condition, the joint mobility, and the sensation. Then we can clean it using warm water, and we trim the nails straight across, and we can file to smooth the edges, and we can apply moisturizer for your dry hands. So, how do we manage your common foot and hand problems? So, for patients suffering from calluses, we can apply gentle pumice stone after bathing. We can apply moisturizer or padding for pressure areas. Now, for comms, we can do your protective padding or proper footwear. For the fungal infections such as your athlete's foot, we should keep the foot dry and we can apply antifungal cream. Then for your ingrown nails, we warm it with warm water. Then we properly trim it and we can refer it if infected or recurrent. And now let's go to your therapeutic massage. So your therapeutic massage is indicated for relaxation, for circulation enhancement because it will improve your blood supply or the blood flow to the tissues, and it can reduce your pain. So appropriate massage technique can alleviate muscle tension and promote non-pharmacologic pain relief for some patients. And these are the basic massage techniques. So we can do your effleurage or your long gliding strokes that follow your body contour. So it is used primarily for relaxation and to begin and end massage sessions. Or we can give your petrissage or kneading motion. So it is effective for your large muscle groups such as your shoulders or back, or we can do your tapotement. So it's a light rhythmic tapping using your fingertips or cup hands. So it stimulates and invigorates. So safety considerations prior to your massage is that we apply appropriate lubricant to prevent friction and skin damage. So we can integrate massage into our care routine. So first we assess and determine appropriateness based on the patient's condition and preferences. So some patients would like to have therapeutic massage, some doesn't want. Then we integrate the routine care like bathing or bedtime preparation. Then we can perform the technique with appropriate pressure for 3 to 5 minutes. And then we evaluate the response and we can adjust future approaches accordingly. So for the basic hair care in the nursing practice, now we can do your brushing and combing. So we use a wide tooth comb for wet or tangled hair. Then we section the hair to manage thick or long hair, and we hold sections near roots when detangling. And for shampooing, we assess the mobility for bathroom or bedside approach. So some patients uh, will need assistance with shampooing. Some doesn't want to be assisted. So we always assess prior mobility. Then we can apply the shampoo at scalp and we can do a gentle massage. Then we rinse it thoroughly. Then for styling, some patients would like to style themselves. Thus, we always respect their personal preferences and their cultural practices. So approaches for patients with limited mobility, we can do your bedside shampooing. No? So we position the patient at edge of bed with neck supported. And we can do your dry shampoo. So you can apply commercial dry shampoo for patients who cannot tolerate water-based method. So it's in the market. So for patients who can sit but not stand, we can use your shower chairs. And we can use your ergonomic brushes with extended handles and adaptive equipment when promoting self-care for your patients with limited range of motion. Now for your scalp, prior to applying your shampoo, we have to inspect first the scalp. No, so we examine the scalp for any redness, scaling, lesions, or infestations. We can also feel it for any masses or irregularities. Then we can document it in our chart. For our nail and cuticle hygiene, we can use it by trimming straight across with gentle cuticle care and smoothing the rough edges. So we always inspect for signs of infection or abnormal growth patterns before proceeding with our nail care. Then for your oral hygiene is one of the important aspect when it comes to hygiene. So it reduces your bacterial colonization and respiratory infections if your patient has a thorough oral hygiene. So we can prevent cavities or gum diseases, and good oral hygiene can be one of the enhancing your appetite for those picky eaters. Then it can promote well-being of our patient. So techniques for oral hygiene in bed. So we elevate the head of our patient 30 to 45 degrees. This is to prevent your aspiration. Now, if the patient is unconscious, then we can position the patient on lateral position. Then we can use your soft brush with small amount of your toothpaste. Then we provide water for rinsing, or we can use your suction toothbrush for dependent patients. And we can apply water-based moisturizer to prevent cracked lips. So again, for your unconscious patients, we can do your side lying position to prevent your aspiration. Then for intubated patients, we can move your ET tube from side to side to clean all areas. Then we can apply water-based moisturizer. And for those patients who are on NPO, we can increase the frequency of care to decrease the natural mouth cleansing. So we can use your alcohol-free mouth moisturizer or mouthwash. And now let's go now to shaving. No, so shaving for male patient is indicated first if the patients desire to maintain groom appearance and usual routine. And for those patients who are to be um, wheeled into the operating room, so we do shaving. So ensure proper seal for oxygen mask or other facial equipment. So especially for face masks, no? So we have to shade the mustache of our and beard for our patient. And also removing of your facial hair is indicated because your facial hair may harbor microorganisms. So safety in your shaving, we always make sure na we have to use your disposable safety razors with guards if absolutely necessary. Then we never use your straight edge razors due to your bleeding risk. Then we evaluate the bleeding risk of our patients, especially for those patients on anticoagulants such as your heparin or your warfarin. Then we respect the patient's preference about the shaving and style. And we evaluate comfort level during the positioning. So the step-by-step shaving procedure, we always ask permission and consent for our patient. Then we prepare the equipments. Then we apply warm or moist towel for 2 to 3 minutes to soften the hair and open the follicles. And we can apply shaving cream or gel if using your safety razor. So the technique in shaving is that we hold the skin taut with one hand to create a smooth surface. So we shave in direction of hair growth using your short, gentle stroke. Then we rinse the face with warm water and we pat it dry with clean towel. Then we can apply alcohol-free aftershave or moisturizer to soothe the skin of our patient. And now let's go for your steps for making an occupied bed. So for preparation, we gather the supplies prior for the prior sub procedure. Then the initial positioning, we lower the head of bed. Then we raise the side rail on far side and position the patient on side facing you. Then we change the first side by loosening the bottom linens. Then we roll the sword linens toward the patient and place the clean linens on exposed half. Then we raise the side rail, move to the opposite side. Then we lower the rail and roll the patient over the linens towards you. Then we remove the sword linens. Then we pull the clean linens through and we secure the edges under the mattress. So in making an occupied bed, we remove the all soiled linens in one bundle, holding away from our uniform. Then we assess the mattress, now check for any damage or bodily fluids. Then we have to apply a bottom sheet. So we place the clean bottom sheet with center fold aligned with the mattress center. And we complete the bed by adding draw sheets if necessary, then top sheet, blanket, and spread, tucking each layer securely. So prior for your bed making procedure, um, so before bed making, we have to do our hand hygiene. Then we can use our gloves when handling visibly soiled or contaminated linens. Then we roll the soiled linens with soiled side inward away from uniform. And we place directly in designated linen hamper without shaking. And now for your documentation and communication after care. So we document the procedure performed, the assessment of the skin of our patient, the patient response, which would indicate tolerance and engagement level, and the education provided to our patient. And in summary, the best practices in your hygiene care is personalized care. So we tailor the hygiene care to individual preferences and needs. Then we maintain the privacy and respect throughout the procedure. And in every care of our patient, we continuously evaluate the skin and structures during our care. Then we promote self-care whenever possible with appropriate assistance. Then we document the findings and adjust care plans based on outcomes. And with that, thank you for listening.